Alright guys, back with part 5 of the roster deep dive series that I'm doing. And in this one we're going to talk about one of the trains of farming that is probably the second hardest grind in the game, next to the Ultron gearing grind, which is just so brutal and it's just so demoralizing. But this is probably the second most because you're farming a lot of minions. Minions aren't as exciting as marquee Toons. These minions in particular are not like super meta, although they're probably one of the more underrated groups in the game. I definitely think a lot of people don't realize how strong they can be, especially in raids. They're better in raids than you think they are. That being said, because they're not meta, because there are other better teams, like they're probably about 10th best in most game modes, like are somewhere in that like top 10 range, but not in the top 3. Most people want to put a lot of gear into them. But they're really important for farming one of the best characters in the game, which is Nick Fury. He's probably just outside the top tier meta right now, just because of the way Phoenix and Ultron work. You don't really need him to do any buff spreading. But before that, he was in a lot of hybrid teams. He's still one of the best Fear the Darkness Toons, so I highly recommend him. And Fury Shield, probably the best overall team in the game right now. Even though they're only probably 3rd best or 4th best at all game modes, they're still top in all game modes, and they're a really balanced team. And you'd be surprised about how good they are. They can compete in arena all the way up to a pretty decent high tier. Obviously, they'll crush defender teams. They'll crush a lot of hybrid teams. And you can use Nick Fury for a lot of hybrid teams in himself. In War, they're really good against defenders, which you'll see everywhere. They're good against Guardians, which you'll see everywhere. And they're pretty solid against almost all teams except for the really high-level meta teams. Such as, they're really bad against Brotherhood. That's designed to counter them. They're really bad against Phoenix. They're not so good against Ultron. But everybody else, they'll crush. In this, what you're going to find is you're going to have to level up all the Kree minions to get Nick Fury, and then you're going to have to level up the shield minions to use Nick Fury. So it can be really grindy and really frustrating. But because they're so important, I highly recommend people get started on it really soon. For the threshold levels, you're probably going to keep the Kree at 5 and then do some other teams and then get the Kree to 6, kind of like in a cyclical rhythm. I would probably leave the Kree at 6 for a long time just because there's so many other meta teams out there now that it doesn't justify getting Nick Fury and Fury Shield to level 7, 7-star right away. But 6-star is definitely worth it, and I highly recommend it. So what you'll probably do is Kree 5-star, then Shield minions 5-star, and then maybe like the Brotherhood team's 5-star, and then maybe Power Armor you'll work on, and then maybe another team you'll work on, and then you'll come back to Kree and do them at 6-star. And you can kind of see how that works. So it might take you 2 cycles to get to 6-star of the Nick Fury event, but if you can compress it into 1, it's obviously a lot nicer. So try to figure that out. That being said, Kree, you can keep these guys at tier 8 if you want. You could definitely unlock them at Fury at tier 8. I have mine at tier 9 and level 60, but tier 8 level 60 is probably what I would still do, just because there's some abilities on them that you'll want to take to level 6. Okay, that being said, we're going to dive into each one. I'm going to talk a little bit more about these tunes because I actually am going to put more mats into them, and you don't have to, but that's because where I am at in the game, having a solid Kree team is just yet another team I can take on Alliance War and kill some other teams, so that's kind of why I'm going to do it. Okay, Kree Noble. Kree Noble is the best Kree minion by far, like one of the better minions in the game. You'd be surprised about how good her kit is. So 1, Kree Sidearm, you can leave at level 5, you don't really need to take the level 6, but when you take it to level 6, generates an extra ability energy, and also has a chance to remove a positive effect. So it has a chance to debuff, has a chance to generate energy. It's just really, really good. Solid move all around. Her special hits like a truck and gives offense up to the next Kree. So you always want Kree Noble at the end, so you know exactly who you're going to give that offense up to. It's just a really, really good ability. I have 5 red stars on my Kree Noble, and there's often times where this paired with the assist on the offense of Kree will one-shot a Toon. It's actually surprising how much damage it does. The passive is also really good. When you take it to level 4, it clears a negative effect. You could leave it at level 2. It's not really important to take it to level 4 necessarily. But as you get into the late game, you might eventually do it. Just when you have 4,000 ability mats, it's a little bit easier to spend them and kind of spend them on activities or abilities that aren't super necessary. Okay, next, Kree Reaper. Kree Reaper and Kree Cyborg are pretty similar too. They serve the similar roles. Honestly, the one you want to focus on most is the one that you get better red star pulls on, so that's basically how I do it. And for me, that's my Kree Reaper. The only thing you really need at level 6 is the special. It's really good because it just does way more damage. There are times against weaker Toons that Kree Noble with the Kree Reaper assist will one-shot a dude, and then Kree Reaper will one-shot another dude or just cripple another dude. So you'd be surprised by how much damage it does. Especially if you put in the extra crit chance, you could definitely leave this at level 2. Doesn't need to be higher. I'll probably take him to level 4 because, like I said, I'm trying to round out my Kree team in probably the next 3 months or so. The basic, leave at level 5. You don't really need it to higher, for the most part. Okay, Kree Cyborg. Basically the same thing. Everything that applies to Kree Reaper can apply to Kree Cyborg. The only other difference to Kree Cyborg is that he's tech, which means he can function on tech teams in a pinch. Like tech villain teams are kind of nice, but it doesn't really make that much of a difference. You're not going to build around him. Basically the same thing. You can leave his basic on level 5, the special on level 6, and you can leave his passive at level 2 if you want, although the level 4 is kind of nice because it gives another offense up, or a chance to give another offense up. Okay, Kree Oracle, definitely the worst Kree minion. Not good at all. The only thing reasonably good about him is that with his passive, he'll heal Kree for like 10% of this character's max health, which is kind of nice in the raids, surprisingly nice in the raids. But for the most part, you're going to have better teams in the raid, so it's not really a big deal. Including Fury Shield will be much better than this team in the raid, just trying to farm to get. So definitely one of the worst Kree minions. You can leave him at 542. I probably won't spend too much time leveling him up, other than maybe getting this to apply generation to all allies, and that's probably the only thing I'll do more. Yeah. All right, Kree Royal Guard, necessary part of the team, but doesn't need to be at a higher level because he's their tank. Another Toon that's not that great, but just is because he's so fast, is kind of nice because he protects a lot of the Kree's first turn, and they're so slow. So a lot of times you'll get hit a bunch on Kree Royal Guard, and if you have his passive at a higher level, then you'll have like I think a 50% chance to generate energy. So it's kind of nice. Sometimes it comes in useful. Most of the time it's not really that useful, but it's there. The taunt, only 1 turn taunt. I might bring this to level 6 to give defense up to all Kree, but you can leave it at level 4. It's not even really a big deal. The basic, definitely leave at level 5. He's not there to do damage. He does pitiful damage, so don't worry about it. And that's basically the Kree, guys. Like, there's definitely some value in there late in games, but for the beginner, don't put a lot of energy into them. Leave them at tier 8. Don't put the purple gear into them. You save that for other stuff. I would bring them to whatever level it is you need to do to max out the abilities that you need to do, but you can obviously leave them at there too. And that's basically it, and this will lead into Fury Shield next.